The wrestling world just got rocked to its core when The Undertaker dropped some never-before-seen footage of Hulk Hogan interacting with fans, and what's captured on camera is sending shockwaves through the entire industry. This isn't your typical backstage clip or rehearsed meet-and-greet moment. This is raw, unfiltered, and completely unexpected. The dead man himself decided to pull back the curtain on something that's been hidden from public view for years, and once you see what's in this footage, you'll understand why everyone is talking about it. Before we dive into all the jaw-dropping details, make sure you hit that subscribe button because you won't want to miss what's coming next. The footage surfaced during what seemed like an ordinary interview session when The Undertaker was discussing his legendary career and the various superstars he'd crossed paths with over the decades. Without warning, he mentioned that he had something special stored away, something that would change how people view one of the most iconic figures in wrestling history. That figure is none other than Hulk Hogan, the man who put professional wrestling on the map for millions of fans worldwide. The Undertaker explained that this footage had been sitting in his personal collection, recorded during a time when smartphones and social media didn't exist, when moments like these were captured on handheld cameras and forgotten about until someone stumbled upon them years later. What makes this footage so significant is the context surrounding it. We're talking about an era when Hulkamania was running wild, when Hogan was at the absolute peak of his powers, selling out arenas across the globe and becoming a household name that transcended wrestling itself. During this period, Hogan's interactions with fans were carefully managed and orchestrated by promotional teams and marketing departments. Everything was polished, everything was perfect, and everything was designed to maintain the larger-than-life image that made him a superstar. But this footage shows something completely different. It shows Hogan in moments that weren't scripted, weren't planned, and weren't meant for public consumption. The clip begins in what appears to be a hotel lobby somewhere in the Midwest during a tour in the early 90s. The quality is grainy, the audio crackles occasionally, but the content is crystal clear. Hogan is surrounded by a group of fans who somehow managed to figure out where the wrestlers were staying. Security hasn't arrived yet, and for a brief window of time, these fans have unfiltered access to their hero. What happens next is what's causing all the conversation. Instead of the rehearsed catchphrases and flexing poses that everyone expected, Hogan sits down with these fans and just talks. He asks them about their lives, where they're from, what they do for work. He listens to their stories, really listens, nodding along and engaging with genuine interest. One young fan, probably no older than 12, tells Hogan about how he's being bullied at school for being smaller than the other kids. The camera zooms in slightly, and you can see Hogan's entire demeanor shift. The showman facade drops away, and what's left is just a man talking to a kid who needs guidance. Hogan doesn't give him the typical say your prayers and eat your vitamins speech. Instead, he shares a personal story about his own childhood, about feeling inadequate and uncertain, about having to find his own strength before he could become the person everyone sees on television. He tells this kid that size doesn't matter, that heart matters, that believing in yourself when nobody else does is what separates the people who succeed from those who don't. The Undertaker's voice comes in over the footage, explaining that he was there that day, standing just off camera, watching this entire interaction unfold. He admits that it changed his perspective on Hogan completely. Up until that moment, he'd viewed Hogan purely as a competitor, another wrestler in the locker room trying to stay on top of the mountain. But seeing this vulnerable, honest side of the Hulkster made him realize there was depth beneath the character, a real human being who understood the responsibility that came with being someone's hero. The footage continues, showing more interactions with different fans. An older woman, probably in her 60s, approaches Hogan with tears streaming down her face. She explains that her grandson is fighting cancer and that Hogan is his favorite wrestler, that watching Hulkamania has given this kid something to hold on to during chemotherapy treatments and hospital stays. Without hesitation, Hogan asks for the hospital's name and the kid's name. He promises this grandmother that he'll make a phone call, that he'll send something special for her grandson. The Undertaker's narration reveals that Hogan not only made that call but arranged for the entire locker room to send autographed merchandise and personal video messages to this child. None of it was publicized. None of it was turned into a PR opportunity. It was just done quietly because it was the right thing to do. Then the footage takes another turn. A group of teenage fans starts getting rowdy, pushing each other to get closer to Hogan, their excitement turning into aggression. Instead of having security remove them, Hogan stands up and addresses them directly. His voice is firm but not angry, authoritative but not condescending. He tells them that being a fan means respecting each other, that the wrestling community is supposed to lift people up, not tear them down. He explains that the values promoted in the ring, the idea of being a real American hero, means something beyond just entertainment. It means treating people with dignity, standing up for what's right, and being someone others can count on. The teenagers immediately calm down, apologizing not just to Hogan but to each other and to the other fans around them. The Undertaker pauses the footage at this point and reflects on what made this moment so powerful. He explains that anyone can tell people how to behave, but actually reaching them, actually making them understand and internalize a message, requires a different level of connection. Hogan had that ability. Despite all the criticism he's faced over the years, despite all the controversies in backstage politics, there was an undeniable gift for connecting with people on a human level that couldn't be faked or manufactured. The final portion of the footage shows the aftermath of these fan interactions. The hotel lobby has cleared out, security finally arrived to escort the wrestlers back to their rooms. Hogan is sitting alone on a couch, looking exhausted. The camera is still rolling from across the room, and you can see him running his hands through his hair, taking deep breaths. Another wrestler, whose face isn't clearly visible, sits down next to him and asks if he's okay. Hogan's response is barely audible, but the camera's microphone just barely picks it up. He says that sometimes the weight of being everyone's hero gets heavy, that knowing people are counting on you to be perfect, to always have the right answer, to never show weakness, can be crushing. He admits that he worries about letting people down, about not living up to the image that's been created. This moment of vulnerability is what makes the footage so compelling. For decades, Hulk Hogan has been portrayed as an invincible force, a larger-than-life character who never doubts, never falters, and never shows cracks in the armor. But this raw, unguarded moment reveals the pressure that came with being the face of an entire industry. It humanizes someone who's been mythologized to the point where people forget there's a real person beneath the bandana and the handlebar mustache. The Undertaker explains that he's releasing this footage now because the wrestling business has changed dramatically. Social media has created an environment where every interaction is recorded, where every mistake is amplified, and where the line between character and person has become increasingly blurred. He believes that showing this side of Hogan, this authentic human side, is important for younger fans who only know him through highlight reels and controversy headlines. He wants people to understand that the legends of wrestling were complex individuals who carried enormous burdens while trying to entertain millions. The reaction to this footage has been mixed but largely positive. Longtime wrestling fans who grew up during the Hulkamania era have expressed appreciation for seeing this different dimension of their childhood hero. Many have shared their own stories of meeting Hogan at various points over the years, corroborating the idea that behind closed doors, away from the cameras and the crowds, he genuinely cared about the impact he had on people's lives. Younger fans who are more familiar with Hogan's controversies and the less flattering aspects of his legacy have found the footage eye-opening, admitting that it challenges some of their preconceived notions about who he is as a person. Critics have questioned The Undertaker's motives for releasing this footage now. Some suggest it's an attempt to rehabilitate Hogan's image during a time when his legacy has been complicated by various scandals and public missteps. Others argue that cherry-picking positive moments doesn't erase problematic behavior or controversial statements made in other contexts. These are valid concerns, and The Undertaker addressed them directly during the interview. He made it clear that he's not trying to erase history or excuse anyone's mistakes. His intention is simply to present a more complete picture, to show that people are capable of both tremendous good and significant failures, and that reducing anyone to their worst moments or their best moments doesn't serve the truth. What's particularly interesting about this entire situation is how it's reignited conversations about the nature of celebrity and heroism in modern culture. The footage shows Hogan at a time when celebrities had more control over their public image, when mistakes could be managed and imperfections could be hidden. Today's environment is radically different. Every moment is potentially public, every interaction can be shared instantly, and the pressure to maintain a perfect image is even more intense because the scrutiny is constant. The Undertaker's decision to share this old footage serves as a reminder that even in an era of less transparency, these wrestlers were dealing with similar pressures and similar struggles. The wrestling community has largely rallied around the footage, with many current and former wrestlers sharing their own stories about Hogan's behind-the-scenes generosity and mentorship. Multiple performers have come forward to discuss how Hogan helped them during difficult periods in their careers, offering advice, making phone calls to promoters on their behalf, or simply being someone they could talk to when the business felt overwhelming. These testimonials paint a picture of someone who understood the responsibility that came with his position and tried to use his influence to help others, even if those efforts weren't always publicized or recognized. The broader entertainment industry has also taken notice of this footage and the conversations it's generated. Several sports journalists and cultural commentators have written pieces analyzing what this moment reveals about the golden age of wrestling and how dramatically the relationship between performers and fans has evolved. There's been discussion about whether modern wrestlers have the same opportunities to create these unguarded moments with fans, or if the constant presence of recording devices and social media has made genuine, unscripted interactions nearly impossible. From a historical perspective, this footage serves as an important document of a specific time in wrestling history. The early 90s represented a transitional period for the industry, caught between the territory system of the past and the global entertainment empire it would become. Wrestlers were traveling constantly, working brutal schedules, and trying to maintain their bodies and their personas while dealing with limited resources and support systems. The pressures were immense, and the footage captures that reality in a way that polished documentaries and carefully crafted interviews never could. The technical aspects of the footage have also generated interest among wrestling historians and archivists. The fact that this recording survived at all is somewhat remarkable, given that many similar recordings from this era have been lost to time or deteriorated beyond recognition. The Undertaker revealed that he'd had the tape digitized years ago, preserving it before the magnetic tape degraded completely. This has sparked conversations about the importance of preserving wrestling history, particularly informal footage and recordings that capture moments outside the ring. Looking at the bigger picture, this footage and its release represents something significant about how we process and understand our heroes. Wrestling has always existed in a space between reality and fiction, where performers create characters but also infuse those characters with aspects of their real personalities. The lines blur, and fans often struggle to separate the performer from the performance. This footage forces that separation, showing Hulk Hogan the person in moments where the Hulk Hogan character wasn't active. It's a rare glimpse behind the curtain that doesn't diminish the magic but rather adds depth to it. The Undertaker's closing thoughts on the footage focused on legacy and how it's built. He argued that true legacy isn't created through perfect moments or flawless performances, but through the accumulation of genuine connections and positive impacts made over time. He suggested that while Hogan's legacy is complicated and will continue to be debated, these moments of authentic connection with fans represent something valuable and worth remembering. They show someone who understood the power they had over people's emotions and generally tried to use that power responsibly. As this footage continues to circulate and generate discussion, it serves as a reminder that the people we elevate to hero status are still human beings navigating their own challenges and insecurities. The wrestling industry has given us countless memorable characters and performances, but perhaps the most compelling stories are the ones that happen when the cameras aren't supposed to be rolling, when the guard comes down, and when real humanity shines through the carefully constructed persona. The Undertaker's decision to share this footage has given fans a gift, a chance to see one of wrestling's biggest icons in a completely different light, and to appreciate the complexity of someone who carried the weight of an entire industry on his shoulders while trying to remain true to the values he promoted in the ring. If you found this story as fascinating as we did and want to stay updated on all the latest wrestling news and revelations, make sure you're subscribed to our channel because there's always more to uncover in the incredible world of professional wrestling.